What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Full 40 with Willy and Trevor. Basketball happened last week.
It
started, which is a good thing.
It was what it was.
It is what it is. It was what it was. Yeah, I mean, we lost to Columbia.
It was the epitome of brutality.
Yeah, it wasn't great. Mark Few's son got baptized. Absolutely,
that actually made me feel a lot better.
Yeah, absolutely destroyed. But yeah, I mean, positive notes. College basketball's back, which is fantastic. Spent a lot of this weekend watching games. Watched a lot of Gonzaga between the Baylor Gonzaga game, between Gonzaga Arizona State. Was always just locked in, had something going. But yeah, our Wildcats.
So you watched good basketball. I only watched Villanova.
Good basketball. Yeah, I watched some good basketball.
Yeah, I struggled watching the opener on my phone because I don't have whatever channels I need where I am right now.
Yep.
And that was like whatever. You know, we were hoping for a more, I don't know, a stronger game, I guess, to open up the season. Like it was fine. Like I don't even.
It was a mission accomplished game.
Mission accomplished. Yeah. It was like, all right, check that box. Okay, we have Columbia next. No big deal. And then wrap up with NJIT on Friday. And then wait a second. It was we had a throwback to 2012. One of Jay Wright's more infamous teams. History repeated itself a little bit. Columbia's played Villanova 4 times and won in the pavilion twice, I think is the stat. The other time, the more recent time we played them was the 2017-18 season, I want to say.
That was at Wells Fargo.
That was at Wells Fargo because the pavilion was under construction. But yeah, Columbia is probably one of the few non-conference opponents in like pavilion history, I think, that can probably say they come in and won 2 out of 2 in the pavilion. Obviously, previously it was a way more of a significant, everything about the current fandom and everything aside, like the old pavilion just felt like it had an advantage because the court was like cursed and there were dead spots and our players knew like where to direct people to in order to get an advantage of like, oh, there's a dead spot there on the court. If I back somebody down here, or sort of if you're defending, you kind of like guide them to a certain spot, the ball is going to lose its bounce a little bit. And then that's easier to sell out for a steal. Like there were places like that on the old court. Now we have the new court. We don't have the singular student section that just rains down on people like it used to.
I honestly think that losing the singular student section was a big mistake in the redesigning of the pavilion, and I understand why it happened.
But we don't have to go down that road. Like it stinks, it happened, but
just like comparing new to old pavilion, I don't know. You're right.
We had a more significant home court advantage in the old one. So Columbia winning in the obviously it was the down year or two of the Jay Wright era that they pulled that win off. It was the 2012-13 team, right? And then to come back and beat Kyle Neptune's Cats by double digits, and it honestly wasn't that close at the end. I think with 6 minutes left, we were texting in the chat just I don't think we have enough. I don't think we're going to be able to score enough to beat when they were only up 2 or 3. It was I don't know if we're going to be able to score enough to hold on to this one. And sure enough, they made plays. We couldn't make shots. Anything significant from that game that we want to zero in on?
From Columbia?
Yeah, I don't know.
No.
I got something. With about 4 minutes left, a man in his 60s yelled, "I want my NIL money back." And it was quiet enough for my whole section to react. So that was funny.
Crunch
Brian
time.
sits right behind the away bench for those who don't know, so it was close enough for the court for players to hear, I'm sure.
And one of the Columbia parents like reluctantly looked at me, and I was like, "Funny's funny," and we just both started laughing. I was like,
Yeah, ball up top.
All up top. No, I think not really much to talk about with Columbia. Like, I mean, it is what it is. It's a Kyle's.
We got into it pretty well on the we had the space after the game, and it was funny. Like last year when we would have these spaces after these games, like people would be just like screaming angry, and it was just like I don't have any more fight left in me.
And I think that's
Game
like
2.
That's like the overarching thing. Like, I mean, so obviously we had all these 3 games: Lafayette, Columbia, and NJIT. Lafayette was whatever but a win. Columbia was disastrous. NJIT, and honestly, if we took care of business versus Columbia, and then we had the NJIT game, there's probably like a weird amount of optimism from people because the NJIT game was great. Now, NJIT is also one of the 15 worst teams in the country. So like we did what we were supposed to do to a god awful team. Congratulations. But it's just Columbia. Like Columbia is, I think they're like in the 160s, 170s, 180s on Ken Pom. They're a decent team, but they're still low major. It was inexcusable, and frankly, it isn't what it is. Like we got outperformed across every facet of basketball, out-coached, out-hustled, out-worked. It didn't matter. We were outperformed. We spoke about, I think I said this maybe on the spaces, maybe on last week's episode, but like our expectation for this program should never fall below being a tournament team. That is a standard that we need to continue to hold. I will stand by that no matter what. We cannot like let as fans our expectation go below that. Obviously teams might not reach that, but like, are we reaching that? Are we performing towards that level? As Villanova, we should always be at least a tournament team. If not, like, frankly, what Kyle's done the last 2 years is probably the low end of what we should ever expect. Like, that's it. Those are the bad years. But stacking multiple of these up is terrible. And it's just.
Are we in the danger zone right now?
We're in the danger zone.
3 games into the season.
And it was just like, but that's where like I kind of paused because I was like, it's so early in the season. And yes, it's early in the season and the team is not young, but they're new and they're meshing and all this different stuff. And everybody, there's come up with your reasons. But like, this was an unmitigated disappointment. Or I don't know, that's the word I want to be using, but it was a disaster, disappointment, just like a terrible performance. And for it to happen so early into the season, of course, as we saw in the spaces, everyone is feeling kind of just like it is what it is, right? And that's the worst place for a program of any program, but especially for a program of our standard to be, where we look at a loss like Columbia and it's not anger, or there's definitely some anger, but it's not like, it's just kind of like, hey, this is what it looks like. And like, that's bad. And I feel it. Like I did not want him to be on that spaces. I was like, I don't want to talk about this goddamn team.
I really needed it actually, because I just moved for work and I haven't like made any friends where I am. So that was the most human interaction I had all week. So the spaces was very cathartic for me. I'll probably have one again tomorrow. But it was, and just to shift to like, I'm wearing the Big East polo, to shift focus to the Big East at large.
Caping for the conference.
Yes, we lost to Columbia. Butler lost to, what was that school? Austin P. Austin P. Yep. Whose coach was wearing Army fatigues on the sideline.
Mm-hmm.
I do not think he's currently in the Army. Austin P also has a player on their team who went viral a few years ago for his mixtape in high school because he only has one arm from I think he has like a few inches from his shoulder down on his left.
Hansel Emmanuel.
Yeah. Absolutely electrifying mixtape. And he plays for Austin P and dunked on Butler several times. So that was kind of like, that made me feel a little bit better because I think that happened after we lost to Columbia.
Yep. Seton Hall.
And then Seton Hall dropped one to Henry Lowe and Keith Ergo, Kyle Neptune's successor over at Fordham. And
what are the Rams cooking?
The cool thing, we talked about this offline before we jumped on, but that was, I'm pretty sure, Seton Hall's first loss in their like on campus gym since the non-conference loss since the 90s, maybe like loss at all, because I don't think they play too many of there's no way they play many of their big time Big East games there. I'm pretty sure they're a majority.
There's been like a random one. Yeah, there's been random ones happening there, but like,
yeah, I think it's if like they're like
COVID
trying to be petty with a certain school
or COVID, I think
Queens.
Also had
a but yeah, like just, it wasn't just us, but as we said last week, how like the middle of the Big East is really like a big question mark. And aside from UConn, Marquette, and Creighton, it was just like, we don't know where everybody else falls. And then we figured there would be Georgetown and DePaul. Turns out it's like UConn, Marquette, Creighton, St. John's,
and then a bunch of doo-doo.
Everybody else. And not that the bottom teams have been elevated, it's that the mid teams have been relegated.
And I think I thought we were going to have more of like the middle fighting and like
I thought it would be a lot
coming
like
a cream of the
but
and
like
it's a rough start.
2 weeks into the season, this is everybody's like, we had so many UConn fans come on and be like, can you guys please be good again? Because like you're making the conference look bad. And that's okay for one or two schools to do. But Villanova is like the name and the brand that can't be like, it's bad for basketball is something that my dad would say, that when Georgetown was falling apart, and that he would say it's bad for basketball that Georgetown's bad. It was a lot of fun for us. And it was funny to watch, but now I don't feel like laughing anymore.
No. So I don't know. I mean, we have to put last week behind us. Like the team definitely probably has. As fans, we got to put it behind us. We can always come back to it if and when things go sour. We can always go back to it and be like, it all started there. But I think we got to look ahead to next week. But
yeah, so let's give a quick shout to Homefield Apparel, and then talk about, we have the Holy War tomorrow and UVA on Friday. So very quickly, Homefield Apparel is your one-stop shop for all of your school gear purchase needs. We got t-shirts, we got hats, we got sweatshirts, we got crew necks, bomber jackets. There's some really cool football coaching jackets. I got one available, and I believe shooting shirts and new drops coming this fall. Homefield Apparel has any school you could possibly want. I'm buying stuff from other schools because it looks like Eagles colors. You can get anything under the sun. Villanova, we think a new drop's coming for us. You're going to want to use code Nova Insider for 15% off your first purchase with Homefield Apparel. That is your first purchase under an email address. So if you've made a purchase in the past, maybe you have a second email. I don't know. I don't make the rules. But seriously, check out Homefield. Great quality stuff. Very cool retro logos. And yeah, tell them Full 40 sent you. So we have the Holy War in like 20 hours.
Yep.
Tips off at 5 p.m. in Hagen. St. Joe's on campus. And what do we think here? St. Joe's lost a tough one to Central Connecticut State, who pushed Providence to the brink on their opening night to go back to the mid Big East. And I think Providence only won that game because they snuck a service duck into the game and had good vibes from that.
Mm-hmm.
But since then, their season has been cursed. So St. Joe's coming off a bye game loss, and we're both kind of looking at each other like we didn't expect to both be needing this win so bad. But it's like you're pointing at the mirror, and both schools are, from what I've seen, the Central Connecticut game was not Billy Lang's best performance. I didn't watch any of the game, but just from what I'm seeing on the internet, people were pretty fed up about that.
No, not the best performance for Billy Lang. Also, they played Navy. They won by like 7 versus Navy as well. It wasn't
Navy's a really good team. So, happy Veterans Day. Go Navy.
Oh yeah, it is Veterans Day. Go Navy. Yeah, no, wasn't his best performance. But this is a St. Joe's team that beat us last year. They're returning a good amount of the same pieces. Eric Reynolds obviously tore us up last year. I don't know that we've developed a defensive stopper for him as a senior guard. I think it's going to be very interesting. I'm imagining we throw Longino at him because he has been dubbed our defensive player for right or for wrong. He has been dubbed the person that we go to.
I don't want to interrupt too much, but what do you think about? I mean, I haven't been paying attention as much to his defense as I'm trying to like watch the ball go in for him. But what do you think about Wuga as a defender?
I think he's fine. He has good size. He's like I think he's
I mean,
fine.
like I know he has the build for it, but I'm thinking have we just not seen it yet and not been paying attention to it, or is he more of a liability than I want to think he is?
I wouldn't call him a liability. I actually think there's more positive upside to him. Okay. What I'm more worried about is offensively, it's also become very clear, just as we talk about like trends from the last games, that he feels okay. If the offense is bogged down, it's him and Eric, which it should be. But offensively, I'm a little bit. I don't know if we're going to get like full effort because of. I shouldn't say that, but like because
you
of
don't want to tire him out. Yeah. No, I get it. Anyway, continue.
Yeah. So St. Joe's between Eric Reynolds and Xavier Brown, which is spelled in an insane way. Both of those two we're gonna have our hands full in the backcourt. They still have some size with what's his name, Justice Agabor and Rasheer Fleming. Rasheer Fleming's the main one that I was thinking about. There's size there. There's just going to be. I mean, it's St. Joe's in Hagen. Like we've seen this time and time again over the last 60 years, however long this has been going on. This isn't going to be fun. It's still early, so like this St. Joe's team like gives up a lot of offensive rebounds early. Like they turn the ball over. So there's
luckily
things
we don't do either of those things.
They haven't been shooting well from 3, but like it's also tough because it's still so early to really make any huge inferences on like who these teams were, or who these teams are. So I'm still like, going on what we know from last year. Like it's going to be a guard-led team by 2 guards between Reynolds and Brown. Rasheer Fleming's going to be a presence on the inside. I'm very happy that we have Boachi now because we're going to be able to at least throw in person with like Eric has size, obviously, but like a true 6'11" with his throw, like 7-footer that like is just able to like, all right, now we have just someone to throw there.
I don't even think he played against us last year. Wasn't he in a boot last year?
Fleming, I think, was in a booth. It was Christ. Yeah. I think who played for, who isn't on the team anymore. I think he must have transferred. He must have transferred. I missed that. But yeah, so I just think we've seen this story before a bunch of times with St. Joe's. It's a St. Joe's team that might be a little bit worse than last year's team, but like on paper is supposed to be very good again. Like they had high expectations. I think
they should have been a tournament team last year.
They should have been a tournament team last year.
I don't think they made it. I think they had bubble problems.
No, they didn't make the tournament. I'm trying to think like on paper, I think they were probably like, Villanova is the best team in the Big Five, but like we're actually probably expected to like win the Big Five. Obviously the loss to Central Connecticut is not a great start, but we saw what Billy Lang did to us last time. This is going to frankly come down to like, this is a Kyle game because we also have, which call it what it is, but this is a game where like, hey, Kyle, you have a net new team. Like it's not just freshmen. It's not like, oh, they're young. This is a net new team where literally only Eric and Jordan have ever played in a game versus St. Joe's. I don't think Nana's ever really played. Maybe he played for a little bit last
I mean,
year.
Brickus should know them really well.
Brickus, that is a good point that Brickus did do
Brickus should know them really well. I mean, Wuga, there's a chance he knows these guys from like summer ball and stuff.
But still hasn't played a Big Five game.
But,
which, like, for everything that we say about the Big Five, it still does hold, like, especially Villanova, St. Joe's. St. Joe's fucking hates us. Like, they will be up for it. The fans will be up for it. Like, it's going
5 o'clock sharp.
It carries water. Like, regardless of like how the Big Five has changed over time, this matchup carries water. And like most of the time it's them with the vitriol towards us, but like it doesn't matter. They're going to be ready. And it's they have talented players. It's not a cakewalk team.
Yeah, I mean, I think this was I didn't write down what my actual predictions were last week, but I thought this was going to be our toughest non-conference game outside of Cincinnati. And now you add in the part that they're probably more desperate. Obviously, they were going to get up for this game regardless, but dropping one and, you know, where that fan base is at right now, this just became that much more important. Again, not that it wasn't already, but this will be really weird, I think. And
Hagen's got that like
Hagen's like
Pavilion had. Yeah, it's this like haunted weird.
Hagen's haunted. But again, Brickus should know them really well because even outside of the did the A-10 teams like play Big Five as well? So they would play like 3 times how did that work?
I think last year they had there was like 3.
He's played St. Joe's a bunch in his career.
Yeah.
When you think 4 years at LaSalle.
That's actually a good point. I completely forgot that he played at
LaSalle.
So
he should know what to expect. And we should I do want to see more from him. Obviously I think he had 8 assists and then fouled out against Columbia, and then looked like he was trying to be a little more aggressive scoring early against NJIT. But then again, like there's not much you can point to when you play like a bottom 20 team in college basketball and win by 40. But I do want to see a little bit more of him being aggressive, trying to score to try to alleviate that burden from Eric and Wugo to be hitting every shot every time they're throwing like the hot potato. Jordan,
I think we should have a conversation about Jordan like stepping up offensively and defensively. I mean, it's just
stepping up in general.
Stepping up, yeah.
Like he has had whether you want to call it like the curse or the privilege of playing with some like all-time Villanova leaders and captains and just like accountability guys with Colin and Jermaine, Caleb Daniels for whatever he was by all accounts like an incredible leader and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And Justin Moore being behind him. And now it's like, you look around, okay, it's just you and Eric. It's time to put on the big boy pants. And I just don't look,
he hasn't done it for the first 2 games.
3 games in, haven't really seen anything. There are times that he doesn't seem to know what's going on defense. If like you can isolate, you look at enough plays like for any player, they're going to be lost at some point. But like just more often than not, it seems like you kind of catch him. Like, is he supposed to be over there? Was that supposed to be a switch? Or it's time for it's past time, frankly, because you're a senior. I know you haven't been healthy and you haven't been out there all the time throughout your career, but like you've played with all these guys that are Villanova basketball royalty. It's time to do your part.
If we're going to be remotely if we're going to be the best version of us, whatever that looks like, whether that's a tournament team or whether that is a NIT team, whatever that best version of us is, we need Jordan to take a very clear step forward from what he's doing right now. It is 3 games in. There's not like a sound the alarm thing, but I think everybody, including Jordan himself, will be like, all right, he hasn't played to the standard that we hope he could be. And I don't think anyone's expecting Jordan to be like a 17 point per game scorer.
No.
And like, but he should be shooting better than I think he's like 25% from 3 on the season. And he has never really hit threes at the rate we want him to. He's been turning the ball over, hasn't been finishing at the rim. Like there's a lot of, and there's just a bit, and there've been bad decision making, like shooting the ball when it's like, why is that the shot that we decided to take right now, Jordan?
Dribbling the air out of the ball.
A lot of that. So I'd want to see a step forward from him. Also, just as an aside, we were talking about Brickus. This is more of a personal thing. Maybe Kyle, there's a vision I don't see here. The Jameer Brickus backing down in the post, which has happened a couple of times, is an intriguing play. I haven't seen anything terrible come out of it, but nothing great's come out of it either.
No, but
I don't know why it happens.
And I think back to, I think it was like a preseason or maybe it was like a Hoops on the Hudson clip or something like that. But like, I remember, I think it must have been Neptune saying like, oh, he's a lot stronger than you would think. Like he's going to be backing guys down. And again, it was like kind of a head scratcher at that point when I heard it wasn't that exactly like, it was something along those lines, but it was like,
and it's like,
I know it's worked. That's been like our go-to in the past, but like
he's 5'9". Like that's just
maybe.
And it's one of those things where I don't disagree that he's actually pretty strong, but like I would say, okay, you're strong. Use your strength to get downhill and set up other people, or go to a floater and hit a floater. You backing down removes your speed, it removes your ball handling, and you don't have a height advantage. So it's like we're really, and nothing bad has happened out of anything really that I've seen thus far. It just feels like a trend where I'm like, I don't know why we continue to bark up this tree. Even and hey, I guess
we're going to play more serious teams. It's going to be less and less effective than the already not really effective that it is right now. Yeah. Like we are only going against bigger and stronger athletes this point forward.
Yeah, so it's just an interesting thing I've seen. We're gonna we'll keep it. We'll tally it to the side and see how this goes. But yeah, also more serious teams, and we ended up losing anyways to Columbia. So like,
no, like Brian knows what I meant.
Yeah. So I mean, do we have any predictions on us versus St. Joe's? Brian.
Yeah, Brian.
I think we're going to win.
There we go, Brian.
Because I don't think that Central Connecticut is a serious team. Not that NJIT is, but you guys brought up a good point. We took care of business against NJIT.
Yeah.
There was like Willie wasn't able to watch the game because of prior commitments. And at one point we were down by 6. And I was like, yo, we're down by 6. And within 2 minutes we were up by 8. So I was like, okay, so the swing was appropriate.
That was a classic missing shots early thing.
I think it's too big of a game for St. Joe's. I don't know that they're the team that's going to win their big games. Okay. And I think like last year we won some big, like 30, but we won hard games. And I do think this team can win hard games. I don't think they can win a lot of hard games.
Okay.
But I think they can win hard games. I think they're good enough. There's talent there. And I just think St. Joe's is going to build this up too much, and it's going to be a slip up for them, and our guys will capitalize.
Do you think there's going to be a good rollout from the student section?
Yeah, I do. I heard a lot of good stuff from the Villanova student section. I talked about the Hawk Tua podcast with a Villanova student for a while, which is my favorite show.
Oh, do you think we'll get a
new episode out next or tomorrow?
No, I'm not talking about that.
I'm talking about Hawk Tua.
We are.
I know last year St. Joe's fans were given a mainline welcome. Like, what is the equivalent on Hawk Hill? A Hawk Hill Tua?
It's gonna hurt. Like whatever they do, I'm gonna feel it as a fan. What do we think the get-in price is tomorrow? I'm actually gonna look this up live, but let's take some guesses.
I think it was pricey, but I did just see a promo from Villanova to secure my seats now for Section 209. So Villanova has tickets at least. Yeah.
Okay. So
Price is Right rules. I'm gonna say.
Are we saying get in the door?
Get in the door.
Yeah.
Get in the door.
Yeah, like what's the cheapest ticket I can find tonight?
$190.
I'm gonna 144.
All right, I got it up. I have to see tickets. 2. I got to continue. $38. So
okay, so
I would have guessed. I'm sorry, I didn't guess. I would have guessed like 70. $38. I mean, 5 p.m. hurts. Most people have.
Okay, say this game's at 8:30 on a Thursday. It's
no, I mean like there's a lot. So it's 31, 38, 39, 40, 40.
Well, those are just sad fans that they lost to Central Connecticut.
Section
for like
108,
over.
row 7, $40.
So it sounds like
if
any Villanova fans are trying to go to a game, this is the one to go
Dude,
to.
even at the Pavilion when we were like, no one's selling a lower level rivalry or conference game at Villanova for less than $200.
I couldn't give away 3 tickets on Friday, though.
I know, but you also wouldn't have put them up for $30 on Vivid Seats.
If I knew I could have made 30 a pop, it would have paid for half of my dinner.
You couldn't give away tickets, but also like all of the people that you would have asked are out of town. So.
No, it was bad.
Yeah,
I had 3 empty seats next to me. Was able to get someone to come down, but yeah, fair. I know people that would have gone if it wasn't last minute. So
yeah, Brian, you definitely have friends. Anyway, I'm glad Brian said that we would win first, so I don't have to be the first one. So I don't have to be the one to bring it up. But like, yes, I do think we find a way. I think Dixon, Brickus, and Wugo kind of lead like we talked about. They all know kind of the deal here. Wugo less so, just because he hasn't been in the Big Five, but Philly kid. He gets it. Eric Dixon, I don't think ends his career against St. Joe's with a loss, I want to say. So
I'm just going to do what the nerds say. Ken Palm says we lose 76-72. So I'm going to follow what Ken Palm says, 76. Oh, wait. Actually, they say we win. I'm on St. Joe's.
Oh, okay.
So we win 76-72. I'm still going to say we lose 76-72.
Clean sweep. Yeah. No, I mean, look, I fully expect it to be like the worst game to like. I already know how difficult it's going to be to try to watch it. And I'm not expecting it to be a fun game to watch.
Is it on CBS Sports Network again or whatever?
I don't know, but like,
it feels like a game like that.
5:00 start on a Tuesday. Like, it's not a good recipe for me. We'll see. If like you said, this comes down to Neptune versus Billy Lang, it's like, we like Brian said, we have won big games in the past. This constitutes as a big game because of how we played our second game, and now this one matters a lot more than it would have before. Not that it wasn't going to before, but you really have to show up now for the rest of non-conference to not be a joke.
It is CBS Sports Network. Sorry, I have to.
That's awful.
Well, the first thing when I pulled it up on Google, it said Fubo TV streaming. I said that. And I said no.
Gotta renew your Flow Sports subscription.
I said there's not a chance in hell this is real. No, it's CBS Sports Network. I'm sure you can watch it on Fubo TV. But I was like, that cannot.
Yeah, I'll try.
That's probably what you
get. Anything else about St. Joe's before we talk about
no
the ghost of UVA?
Let's talk about the quitters over at UVA.
Yeah, so obviously we talked about this in our previews and stuff, but UVA no longer coached by who was the handsomest man in college basketball since Jay Wright. You looked like you were about to like fact check me on that one, Willie. I know you were looking at your watch or something, but
no, yeah, okay.
As I said that, you looked offended. Who's more handsome than Tony Bennett?
It has nothing to do with their handsomeness. I just realized they had a game today, so I wanted to see if UVA lost. They won 62-45 versus Coppin State.
Brian, you're muted.
Brian, you're muted.
I think Henry Lowe is the most handsome college basketball coach.
You hear that?
Head coaches.
In a few years, Henry Lowe will be the most handsome college basketball coach.
Shout out Hank. But yeah, so obviously Tony Bennett's no longer coaching. I do not remember who the interim coach is.
Ron Sanchez.
Is that a long-time associate head?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Handpicked successor.
Yep. Those always work well.
Yeah. How can it not work out? It's almost like Tony Bennett left them with no choice but to go with his guy. Anyway, I digress. So since that announcement, they've also lost a few current players or recruits or both?
Both.
Okay. So some key transfer acquisitions from the offseason went back into the portal basically because they had their 30-day window. So UVA is playing a few men down from where they thought they would be in September. So how you seem to have their page up. How has their season gone so far?
So they've played 2 games. So they beat Campbell by 9. They beat the Camels, my Camels that I talked about on last episode.
Like the college Camels?
No,
or
the Campbell Camels. Come on. And then they just beat Coppin State like 30 minutes ago by like 22. So nothing, or 17. Nothing that wild yet. It's still UVA. They play a worse pack line defense. So obviously we remember like the UVA of like 2014 and 2019, which was stifling defense, NBA players, a lot of talent. They still do it. It's a little bit worse. Tony Bennett has kind of changed things up over the years, but I mean, this is a team that's kind of in disarray. Let's call it like their coach just left. They've had, I think Worley hit the transfer portal. Jalen Worley, he was a transfer from FSU, and I think he hit the portal. He hasn't played yet this season, to my knowledge, unless he played today. They've kind of it's a team that is literally in transit. It's figuring it out. From what they do have, players that they do have, Isaac McNeely is probably the biggest player that they had. The biggest, best. He's a guard, about 6'3", 6'4". Their point guard, he's been there for a bit. Junior, I think he's a junior. And then Andrew Rohde has also been there. He was at he transferred in last year, played there. Another point guard. Those are like 2 of their bigger players. They had a good recruit. What's his name last year? Or transfer from Duke, TJ Powers. So he went to Duke. TJ Powers at UVA. In terms of talent,
that's such a Duke name.
It's a really Duke name.
I'm surprised he didn't play lacrosse.
Well, it's still time.
Yeah.
But he's also 6'9", so
okay.
Yeah, he transferred from Duke. Big wing. Obviously, every Duke player has a lot of buzz around him coming in. He didn't do anything much at Duke. Had a kind of garbage first game. I haven't seen the box score for the second game. I haven't watched much UVA basketball this year because they're bad and sad. I think sad's a better way to put it. But it's also it is a high major team that, once again, we're facing them in a neutral site at the Hall of Fame Classic, I think is what
Empire,
it's called.
Or it's not the Empire.
It's Hall of Fame something.
Whatever it's called. It's at like 5 p.m. in Baltimore.
It's at 5 p.m. in Baltimore. I will be there. I'm getting in.
You're going?
Yeah, I'm getting into Baltimore.
What's the get in the door price? $38?
No, the get in the door price was like $64.
Okay. What's the other side of it's a doubleheader, right?
I think it's a doubleheader.
Virginia Tech or
hold on. What is that? Hall of Fame Classic? It's not the
Empire Classic.
Is it Empire Classic? I don't think so.
I don't know. Empire Classic, I think, is what we're playing Maryland in, actually.
Yeah, that's Maryland. It's like Hall of Fame Showcase. I don't know. There's always these different names. I can't remember what the name is. Hall of Fame Series, Baltimore. So, and Penn State, Virginia Tech is the other one.
Penn State, Virginia Tech.
Hall of Fame Series, Hall of Fame Classic. We need to have.
Yeah. So, again, this is another one of those that the hype kind of died when Tony Bennett retired, because like it wasn't the same team that it was going to be, obviously, that it was billed as, and then we go ahead and drop a bye game, and it's just like there's no juice. But this is like, again, not to be so to overemphasize, like, obviously it's the biggest game because it's our next game, but these are games we have to win now that we lost. Like, it's the same situation as last year. You lose stupid games, you have to win the more important ones. And so we're already into our quota of losing dumb games. And we haven't even gotten to our DePaul home and home yet. Which DePaul is back. Chris, formerly of the Full 40, is a full-on DePaul fan. He's at the DePaul game right now instead of watching the podcast.
Bro, he's in a DePaul sweatshirt or
At a
t-shirt.
DePaul game.
How do you buy one of those?
I don't know.
Like, is
Maybe
it a
he's
home field thing?
maybe he's a season ticket holder, and they mailed it to him.
I could see that, like a gift, like a welcome gift.
Yeah.
Do you think he hopped on a DePaul pod?
Do you think he Ubered to the game? Love you, Chris. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't want to overemphasize that like we're in the danger zone right now, but like we are kind of, especially if tomorrow doesn't go well, like we are running out of opportunities to bank games that we need to bank.
Yeah,
and we're 5 games into the season.
Yeah, completely. And like to give some context on like the state of Virginia, like I obviously Tony Bennett like left meet like, and that's kind of left them in a whirlwind. But like the fan base at UVA, I've close with a lot of UVA people. They were also done with Tony Bennett. They were ready to
really?
they were ready to run him out of town simply because it was a stale offense. The defense wasn't what they used to be. He wasn't recruiting well. He wasn't like adjusting to the NIL era. So a lot of things that sound kind of familiar. There's a lot of things that kind of we've heard, but they were like one of my good buddies is a big UVA fan. He was like across the board, like they felt it was time. Now, did they think it was time 3 weeks before the season started? No, not at all. But he was. I mean, he's been calling for his head for like 2 seasons now.
Okay.
And so I think there's an opportunity for them to like restart, but like that just means for us right now, there's a chance to capitalize on a team that has lost talent. That I don't know anything about Ron Sanchez as an assistant coach. Like he's not one of the names I know of. Like I know nothing about him as an assistant coach. I'm going to assume he's adequate because I'm just going to say, hey, you got the job, you whatever. But this is a game that we should win. Yeah, not should say should. We have to.
And again, like we know that, and obviously everybody knows. Like after you peel one layer back and you see UVA isn't the team that they used to be, but top of mind, it's like, oh, UVA, like that's a good team. They're not, but that's a name that you see on a resume, and it's like, oh, they beat UVA at a neutral site. Like, oh yeah, that's a huge, when you start getting into bubble conversations and stuff like that, that is something that you definitely need that feather in your cap for that down the road, even if they're not who they have been in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Because like same.
I was excited to see them on the schedule, obviously.
Yeah, no, it's always like, because it's Villanova and UVA were, at least when you and I were in school, very similar.
Yeah.
It was always the team that insane regular season, always top 5, top 10 team, underperform in March, and then we both broke through within a couple years of each other, and it was like similar vibe from the student body and stuff like that. Just it was a very similar feeling. Anybody I knew that at UVA would have fit right in at Villanova and vice versa. And we need to win this.
Yeah,
I don't know much more.
it's just kind of it's a must-win game. There's not much more to say about this like team, and as we learn more about this Virginia team, they're figuring it out as well. Like I'm imagining that that their new coach has them running the same stuff. Like you can't implement and change anything that quickly. But this is going to be I honestly, like if I'm throwing a challenge, this is a Kyle week.
This is Kyle needs to show up, and he has a coaching advantage here.
Yeah.
Let's Bahama's best week of his life coaching wise, the adjustments, everything. Like, can we please see that again against inferior opponents and less experienced coaches?
I don't even want to call them inferior opponents almost, because like they are, but like we have more talent, but like in theory, like they can beat us on paper.
College basketball, anybody can get hot, and
obviously we lost to Columbia, so clearly you can also beat us on the court
without even getting that hot.
Yeah. But it's just these are the games that Kyle needs to be able to scheme up, and it's like, okay, no, our talent gave us like a 2-point advantage, but Kyle gave us a 4-point advantage, or vice versa. Maybe it's our talent gave us a 4-point advantage, and Kyle got us an extra 2 points that really like stood out over the course of the game. These are the games that Kyle needs to like step up and win, and he's aware of that. I know,
and I think my keys for both of these is our bench. Like we know what we're gonna get from Eric. We have an expectation for what we can get from Wooga. We sort of reluctantly know what we're gonna get from Jordan. Bocce, you know, he's a walking double potentially. But you know, the biggest thing about Columbia was like our bench got destroyed compared to theirs. Like they ran 2 platoons basically. So the bench scoring, this goes back to last year too. It was an issue. Like we couldn't we had so many times that it would be the starters, and then like maybe you'd get a boost from Hausen or Hakeem Hart or whoever was making a couple of shots that night. Like I want to see Chris Parker get involved. I want to see Mosley get involved. I want to see Perkins make some shots. Another guy with Big Five experience that I think we left out. And let's just see what we can do here. I think it needs to be a 2-0 week.
Yeah, definitely does. If I'm thinking about like talking about the bench scoring, Perkins can step up a little bit, but like if he gives us more or less what he's been giving us a little bit, like that's fine. But I think there's a lot of opportunity for Chris Parker to really like make an impact, and Mosley, but like the way Chris Parker plays, like he's kind of more of an offensive firepower person than Mosley, who as of right now has kind of fitting into the team and like figuring out where it is. Where I feel like Parker has been more of like, I feel like Mosley's gotten most of his stuff within the flow and being like, oh, here's a loose ball, here's something I can get in, I can get involved in. I'm space here. Where Parker's been like, I'm going to push this a little bit and see what I can create, which is a good thing. We need that. Yeah. And so being able to see more of that from him versus NJIT, he got a couple of threes or 1-3. Was it a 3?
I think he hit a 3. He had a dunk. What should have been a second. He got fouled pretty bad on another attempt that would have been like my instant check play of the week. Because it would have happened in a win instead of what we will probably get to in the Columbia game. But I liked his aggressiveness every time he touched the ball. And that's like what you throw these freshmen out there and it's like, all right, do something to show me that you should stay on the court. Because I have 3 other guys here that are looking for an opportunity too, or 2 other guys here because the NCAA hates us. We should actually find out on the Matt Hodge situation on Wednesday. So after the St. Joe's game, we'll know by UVA if he's able to play or not. I think the bench will be key.
Do we want to do awards?
Kick off our first awards of the season. Refresher for for old listeners and intro to new listeners. We have our Shack Fit Man Play of the Week, which goes to, whatever. I don't know. You explain it too. It's just it is what it sounds like it is. Yeah,
it's the play that goes to. It's named after Coach John, former strength coach John Shackleton, and it's the play that goes to the player that's made like the biggest impact, or like the biggest impact play of the game. Usually, it's
the play that gets you out of your chair.
Yeah, usually it's a dunk. Sometimes it's this is Villanova basketball and everyone's diving all over the floor, but usually it's an incredible dunk.
Alpha Dog of the week, self-explanatory.
Best player of the week,
where Alpha was. Pass the ball award for whoever needs to get the ball out of his hands and stop screwing up. It's just those 3, right?
Yeah, it's those 3.
My nomination for the man play is Chris Parker's first dunk. I know you probably feel differently. I don't think I saw the play I think you're going to bring up because I didn't have all of the Columbia game on, but I think Bocce had some thunder dunks.
Bocce had over the last the 3 games, has had like basically at least one a game, but the one in Colombia in the second half was just absolutely thunderous and dominating.
It was Brandon Slater-esque.
Yeah, it was
almost Nana Njoku levels of
yeah, exactly.
So that'd definitely be my nominee for that is I mean, he's done a couple, but there was one early in the second half where it was just a thunderous like rip, gather, and just like absolutely obliterate.
Which is what he's there to do.
Yeah.
Like and Villanova has never had like I don't want to say never, but like we've been looking for somebody to like Eric has been great at like offensive rebounds and getting the ball back up, but he doesn't have like the athleticism almost to just do those thunder dunks on people's heads like that, just like off 2 feet.
Let's call it like I don't think we've ever had that at that size. Pascal could do it, but he wasn't that big.
Right. Omari wasn't that big.
But still wasn't as big.
We're going back to Yeru for something.
Yeah. And then Yeru wasn't that athletic. Like Ochefu,
he could flush it, but it was like
it wasn't as explosive.
6'11" and like a 7'4" wingspan. He was just putting it down. I'll give you the nod. I'll give it to Bocce.
Yeah.
For consistency over the week.
Yeah. Which I feel like he might have a lot of these over the season. It feels like he's good for one a game at least. Which is cool. It's going to be a fun thing. It'll bring energy to the not only to the team but the fans. Cool. Do we want to go? Let's do pass the ball before we go Alpha Dog.
I think it's got to be. It's got to be Neptune for his comments after the Columbia game. Say, it is what it is, and then you see Eric just like Eric's reaction,
which like we haven't really spoke about it. We've like mentioned it a bunch.
We joked about it. We talked about a lot of the spaces, but Eric's like eyes going wide and just like looking down and away, and that was kind of funny on Twitter. But that being Neptune's response to talking about dropping one at Columbia at home, pass the ball.
This actually might.
It is what it is. All those things, we're human beings. You don't.
I had that queued up.
I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah.
Wow, look at us. We're a real podcast. I don't think there's any real competition to that. Like generally the team for dropping one to Columbia, but that response to it is what killed me.
Yeah.
And then Alpha Dog, I know, Eric obviously exploded against Columbia, and then had a nice game against NJIT as well. I think.
I want to give. It's probably.
Go ahead. I'll hear your case.
Yeah,
we're gonna give it to Eric, but I want to just shout out Wooga for like. I think there's been a level of urgency that he's played with and like pressing, where it's like, especially in that like during
Lafayette game.
Not Robert Morris. But during Lafayette, and just like during every game where there's kind of like a lull, he's like, no. Okay, there's a lull, I'm going to take over and I'm going to push. And like it hasn't been bad at any stretch, but it also hasn't been like the most impactful thing in the world. But like he's averaging like, I think it's like, he had a double in his first game. Yeah. Like he's been really, really good.
And obviously he was key in the Lafayette game that Eric wasn't suiting up for. And then I think everybody was kind of deferring to Eric when he came back for Columbia, just because it was like, oh, this is like our guy. And this is his first game, just get him involved and defer to him a little bit. But Wooga was definitely getting his as well.
Yeah. He's averaging 16 and 7 right now on 2 assists. Like,
did you guys see the clip of Eric in the huddle during the game he had to sit? So there was it was cool. So he's street clothes.
Yeah.
And he was on the middle of the court in the huddle. I didn't see it live because of like where my seats are, but he was like not yelling, but you could tell he was like engaging the dudes. And like he didn't play in the game, but he was fully engaged in it, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. I mean, Eric definitely should get it. I mean, he had the great game, but I just wanted to give Wooga a shout out because like there's a level of urgency and like where he recognizes that like someone else needs to be an aggressor here, and he recognizes the moment. And I want to give him a shout out thus far because he's done a really good job of recognizing the moment, and like he's played. I mean, he's averaging 50, 40, 100 right now. Like it's 3 games.
That works.
Yeah, if he does that for the rest of the season, pretty good stuff.
Yeah. Cool. We will. Congratulations to this week's awards winners, and do better to you know who you are. For our final segment tonight, we have our random Wildcat of the week. This week, I decided to change the format a little bit. I'm just going to start saying like statements about this player's career, and you can, fire some guesses. And then when you have him, I will let you know.
Sounds good.
Player was on the team the last time Villanova lost to Columbia. Player is a
Mislav Brzoja.
No. Multiple time, a multi Big East regular season and tournament champion.
Darren Hilliard.
No.
You don't say it like that, like it's a guessing game.
He 2 national championships under his belt. One as a player.
Daryl Reynolds.
No.
Okay.
He's been mentioned in this podcast earlier tonight.
Henry Lowe.
Yes.
Henry Lowe. Yeah, I was like,
I thought that was too obvious, but then I realized.
No, I was gonna look for a way to bring Henry up, to poke fun at Seton Hall, regardless. But then Brian brought him up as the most handsome coach in college basketball. Okay. But yeah, Henry Lowe. He was a freshman in 2012. Obviously, graduated in 2016. And then he was a grad assistant for the next 2 years. So he was on the staff for 2018's title. We drove to New York together once after the 2018 title to go open the stock exchange. That was fun. Let's talk some Hank. I think this is our first. This might be the first walk-on that we've had as our random Wildcat of the week.
I think you have to start with he was part of the bench mob, which was to me, I think, the first nationally recognized bench mob.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Yes. Everybody likes to point to Monmouth universities when they kind of went viral. And when that happened, I remember Jay Wright was asked about it. He's like, well, we kind of did it first. Yeah. But then we started getting good. So I had to tell the guys, lay it down a little bit.
Was Henry the one that would do the bow?
Yeah, Henry would do the bow. After the Syracuse Arch game.
Arch 3.
Yeah, Arch 3. I remember that bow.
Farrell was the spyglass.
Yeah.
The GIF is out there still.
Yeah. But no, that's what I was going to say. It's funny. I was just that was such a key part of the rise of that early or mid 2010s Villanova team. And that was Hank, that was Farrell, that was Nick McMahon. Eventually Kevin Rafferty coming in a little bit later. I got nothing but love for Hank. He's the best. And just be a huge part of the bench mob. Did he score? I want to say he scored his senior
they all
year.
I think they all got baskets at some point.
Yeah.
He might have scored in the tournament, if I remember correctly. But he definitely hit a 3 senior night against DePaul.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure there's a video of him hitting a step back 3.
There's one where Daryl and Mikhail or Daryl and Josh are in the background, and whatever walk-on hits it, they go.
I think that's Pat.
Yeah.
I think that's Pat.
I think it's Pat.
There is a night where
I might have that clip, so keep talking for a second.
You might be thinking of 2018.
I'm thinking of Tom Liebig.
That was Liebig and Denny who had the jumpers. Yeah.
Versus the ball. Whoops. Sorry, guys. You all kind of blend together for me. But yeah,
2013, 2014, drained his first career 3-point free goal versus a win versus Ryder. So he did,
we play Ryder in a few weeks.
All right, I do have the clip.
Oh.
But Willie, you're gonna have to walk me through
upload it. Yeah, upload it to the brand and then the same way. Yeah. It's going to be super high quality, high def.
This is really exciting for our audio only listeners. We're finally one of those podcasts that plays clips.
Yeah.
And,
true.
Whoever's driving to work is I bet this is really cool.
That's how we know we made it.
But yeah, like I said, crazy accomplishments. Being a member of that team, obviously scout team for the Final Four run that year. Grad assistant for a couple years. Had I think it was was it a private equity or some sort of?
It was
He worked at a startup. It's some type of thing that was working with hoop stuff
to help, or like the goal I think was athletes, trying to build generational wealth while you're playing, as opposed to just whatever else. And then got into coaching with Neptune at Fordham.
Yeah.
He was like he was a video ops coordinator on Kyle's Fordham team, and then stuck around and was promoted to an assistant coach, I think, this season. And yeah, they big win against Seton Hall the other night. So shout out Hank.
Right.
So it froze on me trying to add the.
That's okay. We'll post it.
We'll tweet it out. Yeah.
Yeah. Twitter's cool. It's gonna freeze on me again, so I'll be back.
We'll tweet it out. But no, Twitter's I like this, cool. Trevor. I like this format. Keep quizzing us.
Yeah, this was. We'll do it this way from now on. That way, I don't have to think of somebody before the show, and I can just find somebody and read the Wikipedia and make it sound like I knew what I was talking about beforehand. Yeah, definitely not what I did today. But right. Yeah, we will. I think that's.
That's gonna be it. So obviously we have St. Joe's today or tomorrow. UVA on Friday, and then I think we're off until. When are we playing now?
We got Penn next Tuesday.
Is it Penn next Tuesday? Okay.
Yes, we'll be back Monday.
We'll be back Monday to talk about Penn and Maryland, because Maryland's going to be on Sunday for the Hall of Fame, or for the Empire Classic, Empire Hall of Fame. They're all the same.
The Hall of Fame Series Classic of Empires. So
we'll be back. We'll be back next Monday. We'll be back next Monday. It's time to go. All right. Well, we'll talk to you guys on Monday. And as always, let's go Nova.